Welcome back to the studio. You're watching Eye on Africa here on France 24. I'm Shona Bhattacharya. Let's take a look at our top stories this hour. Paul Kagame, the winner of Rwanda's presidential election. The 59-year-old will be serving a third term, which was made possible by changes to the country's constitution. We'll be getting the latest from Kigali. Calling for action to stop the violence in South Western Congo. A report out this Friday by U.N. Human Rights investigators details atrocities by two militia groups, one made up largely of children, as well as Congolese soldiers. And he created an entire musical genre. Fela Kuti died 20 years ago this week. The Nigerian singer and saxophone player revolutionized dance floors around the world with Afrobeat, a torch two of his sons continue to carry. The result came as little surprise. Rwandan leader Paul Kagame won a third presidential election with turnout believed to have topped 90%. Though the 59-year-old is criticized for jailing opposition figures, he is still widely admired as the man who restored peace and stability following the 1994 genocide. Kagame faced two little-known contenders, Frank Habineza of the Democratic Green Party of Rwanda and independent candidate Philippe Mpayimana. Our correspondent sent in this report on the atmosphere on voting day.
Some began queuing at polling stations here before dawn. 21-year-old Diane is keen to perform her civic duty.
I am very happy because this is the first time I have voted. And also, I am confident that the one I'm voting for will win.
Around 7 million Rwandans have chosen from 3 presidential candidates. One contender, Frank Habineza, is looking at the positives.
We are happy that at least on the final day we've been able to vote, and it's the first time an opposition party is allowed to be on the ballot paper. This is a very good step forward for the democracy in Rwanda.
But Habineza is under no illusions. He stands in the shade of Paul Kagame, the incumbent who's been the de facto power in the country since 1994 and president since 2000. The ruling party is confident.
I have no doubt, because what we have seen during the campaign, what we have seen actually throughout the whole country, in all districts, how people were feeling, I am sure we shall win.
3 p.m. and the count is already underway. The number of ballots for Kagame leaves no room for doubt. Another landslide is on its way.
For more on this story, France 24's Thais Brooke joins us from Kigali. Thais, how are people reacting in the streets to Kagame's win?
Actually, I'm not in the streets. I'm in a gymnasium in a district of Kigali where the supporters of the President Paul Kagame were gathering. Even though the election left little room for the suspense, the supporters literally let their joy explode because the first results went out. It is only 20% of the votes, according to the Electoral Commission, and it is only 8 out of 30 districts of the country. In all the districts where the results are known, the outgoing President Kagame exceeds 97% of the votes. Philippe Mpayimana and Frank Habineza rarely exceed 1% of the votes. There is no reason for the trend to be different in the other districts. So it is now official. Paul Kagame will do a third term of 7 years with a landslide victory. So we can say that really the atmosphere is electric here.
Thais Brooke, thank you so much for that update from Kigali. Calling for immediate action, a U.N. Human Rights report details the violence wreaking havoc on the Democratic Republic of Congo's southwestern Kasai region. The report documents 251 killings over a recent 3-month period. Both government forces and local militias are being blamed for atrocities. Here's Scott Campbell, head of the Central and West African section at the U.N. Human Rights Office.
The High Commissioner is extremely concerned about these killings. He's extremely concerned that the victims and witnesses consistently told us of state involvement, working with the Banamura, one of the militia, and extremely concerned that the attacks were taking on an increasingly ethnic dimension. And the people told us they were targeted, or their village was targeted, due to their ethnic affiliation. I think it's also very important to note that the militia known as the Kamwina and Sapu have also carried out very grave exactions against state officials. They've attacked police, they've killed police, they've attacked local institutions, they've attacked the army. They've been responsible also for an incredibly large number of recruitment of children, and they often use children to carry out their attacks. The nature of the acts committed both by the Kamwina and Sapu militia and the Banamura militia, accompanied by state actors, could, if brought before the right tribunal or the right court, could constitute crimes against humanity.
Sacking one of their own, Alemayehu Gujo, Ethiopia's state minister for finance, has been fired and arrested on suspicion of corruption as part of an anti-graft drive. More than 40 officials have been detained so far. It was launched as a response to the unrest that rocked Ethiopia in 2015 and 2016 that began as protests against a development scheme to expand the capital and turned into broader anti-government demonstrations. The violence led authorities to impose a state of emergency that was lifted on Friday after 10 months. Asking voters for another chance, incumbent Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta held his last Nairobi rally 4 days before the country's local, regional, and parliamentary elections. The Jubilee candidate reminded the crowd of his commitment to infrastructure and development projects that his rival Raila Odinga has criticized for their high cost. France 24's Julia Steers reports from Uhuru Park, where Odinga will be holding his rally on Saturday.
With just 4 days to go until Election Day, President Kenyatta and his Jubilee Party are here reassuring voters that the election will be carried out fairly and that the aftermath will be peaceful. He's also defending his work here over the last 5 years. Now, his opponent, Raila Odinga, is on the campaign trail still raising issues about possible voter intimidation and security issues at the poll, which is leaving many people tense that things here could devolve into post-election violence as happened here 10 years ago. That tension turned into real fear this week with the murder of a senior electoral commission official here in Nairobi. Now, Kenyatta is expecting to win, but the polls are closer than anybody expected them to be at this point, with just a 2% difference between the candidates. So both candidates are spending their final hours on the campaign trail at big rallies like this, trying to reach as many voters as possible before 19 million Kenyans go to the polls next Tuesday.
He was the father of Afrobeat. Fela Kuti died 20 years ago of AIDS, but his music lives on. His son Femi Kuti has expanded the genre, while younger son Sheun still plays with Fela's Egypt 80 band. Still, though Afrobeat continues to be popular, it's got stiff competition on the airwaves. From Lagos, Moise Gomez and Emmanuel Landé report.
Here at Kalakuta Museum, Fela's children are watching over their legacy. Kunle Kuti manages the home where the king of Afrobeat last lived in the 90s. In Lagos, while many artists claim to be cut from the same cloth as Fela, 20 years after his death, few have dared to actually follow in his footsteps.
Afrobeat is a revolutionary music to me, and that's how Fela stood for. So if you have to take a step, then I think you should sing about problems that Fela used to sing about in Africa, no light, not for start singing about enjoyment, like Mercedes, bling. That's not our problem.
Today, Nigerian pop music has a global reach. Its melodies and rhythm are exported all over Africa and elsewhere around the world. If just a handful of Nigerian artists sign contracts worth hundreds of thousands of euros, several hundreds still manage to live off their music. Since the early 2000s, the media has helped to propel local talent. At this radio station in Lagos, music has centre stage on the airwaves.
Most people listen to the beat of the song than the lyrics of the song. And so they care less about lyrics, more about beats, and we get lost somewhere within the line. And a lot of people say, this beat is fine, I like this beat. Few people will say, what this girl or what this guy is singing about makes a lot of sense.
In Lagos, a few music artists have refused to follow the latest musical craze. It's the case for Adebantu and his group, a collective of 13 musicians that convey political messages in several of their songs. In 2013, Adebantu launched Afropolitan Vibes, monthly concerts where his group performs with guest musicians.
We've created our own alternative, because if radio is not going to play us, if TV is not going to show our videos, that means put us on rotation like the WizKids and the P-Squares of this world. We have to come up with a creative way of resisting, and this is our creative resistance.
Afrobeat, Afropop, Afrohouse, regardless of the name, Nigerian music is constantly reinventing itself in the 21st century.
That's it for this edition. Do stay tuned. There's more news coming up on France 24. Stay with us.